Okay, please join me in welcoming our first speaker. Who's our first speaker? Chuck.
All right.
Hi, my name is Chuck. I'm an alcoholic. And I got to tell you, when I was asked to speak here tonight, every part of me wanted to say no, and in fact I said no several times, and here I am. I spoke here once before when I had about a year, I guess, and what's strange is I had more to say then. I had more wisdom to impart than I have now, which is a little frightening. What damage did I wrought 3 years ago? I don't know. You know, when I get these opportunities to talk, I try my best not to come up with some kind of a speech or some sort of a, you know, some kind of a bit or shtick or something like that, and just speak from the heart. And you know, tonight I may not have any heart. So I did look over at the preamble before I came up, and it said something which has always really struck me very deeply, and something I love about this organization is that it says the only requirement to be here is the desire to stop drinking. And I like being part of a group that has a real low bar to jump over. And that's all I had when I walked in. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know anything about the 12 steps. I certainly had no idea that God was involved. I know I wouldn't have come. I would have hung out there a lot longer. In 1967, the first group that I joined that had a very easy membership requirement were at the time they were called dopers and freaks and hippies and stuff. And it was real easy to join that group too. I liked that. You know, there was not much to get in. Just had to show up, get loaded, and you're welcomed, you know, and look like shit, and you can be part of that group. And something else struck me about this thing that has been rattling around in my head a lot, and that is the idea of anonymity is the spiritual foundation. And I just keep thinking, what is more anonymous than God? You know, I have yet to see him pop up and say hi, and yet he seems to be working in my life, amazingly enough. Just to go back, I started getting loaded when I was a little kid, and then, you know, it became a regular daily part of my life when I was about 14 years old. And it was the only way I could get through the day. It was the only way I could get around people. First time I tried to get sober was through a program called the Phoenix House in New York in 1969. And I was dry for a year. I was 18 years old. And I had my very first experience about the nature of this disease, the progressive nature of this disease. After I was dry for about a year, I started getting high again, and at a level that I had never experienced prior to that. And I didn't know anything about the disease too much. I mean, that stuff was about group encounter, and it wasn't a 12-step program. It was just sitting around having guys telling you you're an asshole. And that was acceptable because it sounded right. So after that year, I went back with a vengeance, and picked up the pace dramatically. And then the next big move in my search for something, anything, to get out of the condition of being me, and then this pleased my parents to no end. I joined a very strange religious cult. They were so proud of me. And amazingly enough, I stayed sober because this was this organization became my higher power. I had about 7 years inside that little community, and drugs and alcohol were no longer a problem for me. I had a higher power. It was insane and it was killing me, but I had a higher power. You know, I mean, higher power of your choosing also, I guess, includes science fiction cults. I didn't know. But around 1979, 1980, I'd had enough. I crawled out of that group, and I started drinking with a vengeance that I had no understanding of. And then another thing interesting had happened, and it's very much a part of my story. I think it's the story I tell myself. I can't tell any other stories. Is I had children. I had 2 kids. Got married and had a couple of kids, and in a way, that was the first act of service in my life. I realized I had to take care of them, and that kept me alive. Actually, it kept me from going off the rails. It slowed down the drinking, and it gave me a sense of purpose to take care of these people, and it was probably the first selfless thing I'd ever done in my life, was to try and take care of these children. And the drinking didn't really get out of control, you know, once these kids were born, till, you know, around the end of the 80s, and that was it. I couldn't control it anymore. I destroyed the marriage. I pretty much destroyed my relationship with these kids. And I proceeded to spend the next 10 years trying to control my drinking, trying to stop. And it's an interesting thing. It's not necessarily about alcoholism, but making the effort to do something for those children was the first time that anything right happened in my life. I've been banging my head against a lot of walls trying to make something of myself. Because if you become somebody, then perhaps the deep gnawing hole in the gut would go away. But working on their behalf actually sprang loose some doors, and things started to go right. It didn't solve the problem of being a drunk, but things started to go right, and it really didn't make sense to me till many years later, till when I got sober, that the times in my life when things actually went right, whether I was sober or drunk, was when I was doing something for somebody else. I have no idea why that works like that, except maybe that's working in God's will. I don't know. But I spent 10 years of which I'm very grateful for. In hindsight, I'm deeply grateful that I spent a good 10, maybe 12 years trying to stop drinking. And I needed every one of those years to get to the point where I walked into a meeting. Our first sponsor had 90 days. I thought he was a genius. God, we were just hopeless, the two of us, but you know, he asked his sponsor, who was clueless, if he could sponsor me, and he said, sure, why not? What can you can't hurt him any worse than he's already screwed up already. So so we started doing the steps, and he didn't know anything, and I didn't know anything, and I was afraid to open the book. It looked like a Gideon's Bible when I first saw it. You know, it looked like something you see in a motel room. I didn't want any part of it. Sobriety without it wasn't working. I mean, I was miserable. That white knuckle thing was not a great deal. And he passed on to me something that had been passed on to him. I don't think he understood it, and I certainly didn't understand it, and I had a great deal of difficulty with it, but I believe it saved my life. In addition to going to meetings, he told me to pray. He told me to get on my knees in the morning and pray to be sober. Ask God for guidance as to what kind of man I should be, what kind of actions I should take, and pray at the end of the day and thank Him for staying sober. And I was so humiliated by the idea of getting on my knees. Living alone, I would go inside my closet to get on my knees, and to this day I still go in that closet. That's my altar is a dirty clothes hamper. That's where I pray. But in my way of thinking, that saved my life. That and going to meetings 4 or 5 times a week, and hooking up with other alcoholics. That very simple act of prayer is, I now understand, an admission of surrender. Just the act of praying, just the serenity prayer is an act of surrender to me. You know, just that simple, God grant me, means I don't got it. You know, I can't do it. I don't have serenity. I don't have courage. I don't have wisdom. I need you to give this to me. I don't have it. And that's as big a surrender as I can imagine. And that's the great, beautiful paradox of what I've come to understand in this experience of Alcoholics Anonymous, is that the only way I was going to survive was admitting that I was powerless. The first time I raised my hand and said I was an alcoholic was one of the great moments of my life. I wept. It was such a relief to just say it and just give it up. I cannot control my drinking. My life is completely out of control. And when I get on my knees and pray in the morning, and when I get on my knees and pray at night, and in my better moments when I stop to pray during the day at work or in any kind of situation, it's a reminder that I don't have any power, and I need to seek the power from something else. And I've stayed sober. You know, I've tried to work with other alcoholics. I'm 0 for 4. Anybody wants to go out, see me after the meeting? I picked up the LA Times a couple of days ago, and I saw a picture of a big party in a bar in Vegas, and here's one of my sponsees. Oh man. All right. Well, you know, as has been pointed out to me, I stayed sober, and I'm deeply grateful for that. I mean, I gave them what the guy with 90 days gave me, which, I don't know, it's all I had, you know, and what I've been able to pick up at these meetings, and, you know, sit down and read a book with another guy, and you know, talk about doing the steps, and you know, try not to take it personal. But it has kept me sober, and the only thing I can figure is like the act of taking care of my children. I get power by being in that stream that God meant me to be in. That's the path I'm supposed to be on. Things go right when I do that. My career hit a absolute rock bottom in the last couple of years. I couldn't make anything go right, no matter how hard I tried. It was driving me into a nice, deep, wonderful, dark depression, and when all else failed, a friend of mine said, "Can you help me with my career?" So I helped him with his career, and my career took off again. How do you figure that? It was a stupid call. Everybody told me not to do it. He's an asshole. you know. But he's my friend, you know, and you know, it's goes against my nature to do selfless things. But helping him helped me. Helping the kids helped me. Standing up and saying, I can't handle my drinking. I need somebody else. I need something else. Help me. Every good thing that's happened to me in the last 4 years, 9 months now, that as a result of being sober, is direct result of saying I don't have any power. It's amazing to me that I don't use these tools all the time. You know, the obsession to drink was lifted. The relationship with my children has been repaired, with my mom before she passed away, with my sister who hated the ground I walked on, all repaired. And yet it's a daily struggle to remember that these tools, the tool of surrender and the tool of prayer and the tool of inventory, can be used in all my affairs. I'm stubborn. I still want to do it my way, even though I have ample evidence that didn't work. But nevertheless, I'm grateful to be up here and be able to look at you guys without fear, just to be in a room with other people without fear. It's unthinkable. I mean, I think back to the first couple of meetings I went to. I was frightened of everybody, you know, truly frightened, suspicious, and in the process of doing the inventory work, I came upon the surprising fact that that pretty much was the story of my life. I was frightened, and the way I handled my fear generally was to either isolate or get angry, and that was it. As the tools I had, I would either isolate or I would attack, and I was a well-loved man as a result. And I had no other tools. I had no other tools for living. The 7 years in the cult really didn't work out for me as tools for life. I love this program. I mean, I don't know what else to say. That I like going to meetings. I like hearing other people talk about their lives. Nowhere else do I go do people talk honestly like they talk here. I've made friends here that I've never had anywhere in my life. I try not to take for granted that I didn't have the obsession to drink today. You know? And nowhere can I go to be reminded of the obsession to drink than at a meeting where I'm looking at somebody who's still struggling with the obsession to drink. And to be reminded that, you know, there but for the grace of God, you know. This thing is a miracle. It's one of the quiet little miracles that I somehow, I heard somebody say at a meeting, and I love this, and I think it to myself a lot, but I've never said it out loud to anyone else, but some guy at a meeting somewhere said he thanked God for bringing him to AA, and he thanked AA for bringing him to God. And that just sums it up for me. I had no conception of a higher power when I walked in, but I believe that I was guided here. I don't know why, and you people kindly and gently allowed me to find a God of my own understanding. That God of my own understanding has kept me sober. And don't know what else I could ask for. I mean, I got so much more than I asked for already. All I wanted to do was stop drinking. I didn't ask for serenity, which comes in glimpses and patches. I didn't ask for my family back. I didn't ask for any of those things. I didn't ask for any of the bells and whistles that came with sobriety. I just wanted to stop. And if there's anybody here that's new, and boy, you're in the right place, because I mean, I can, after the meeting, tell you where that cult is at, but it ain't gonna get you sober, and it ain't gonna fix your life. But this remarkable little thing that leads us back to God, is a miracle, and I'm glad to be part of it. Thanks.